Hi everyone, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome and introduce Dr. Olivia Lesler to the Eternal Possibilities Show, where we discover the untold stories of remarkable medical graduates. Olivia is currently a medical doctor practicing on the Gold Coast, passionate about healthy aging, gut health and aesthetics. She has a very interesting and varied past. In her 20s, she travelled for many years, was a stand-up comic and hospitality consultant, and completed an international relations degree where she triple majored in French and diplomacy. She then did med at 30 and has devoted herself to keeping life interesting. Olivia, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Let me start by first asking you, how did you end up in medicine after all those twists?
Oh, okay. So it's not the nicest of stories, but basically I did really well through high school. And I had a couple of scholarships, and the idea was to do medicine. But my mom passed away of metastatic breast cancer in year 12, and she died overseas. So we were pulled out of school for about 3 months or so. And my dad kind of wanted to spend time with us as a family, and so we wound up traveling the US where she passed away. And then I just didn't get the grades to get into medical school after all. So then I was bouncing around. And a little bit lost for a while, which is why I did all those other varied things. And then finally I realized that I was climbing all these ladders that I didn't want to climb. And so I bit the bullet and went back to uni when I was a bit older. And I'm really glad I did.
What ladders did you find yourself climbing?
Okay. So, like most people, I think in our late teens, I was waitressing in a restaurant. And then I became the shift supervisor, and then the more senior supervisor, and then I became the floor manager and the manager in charge of training and all the rest of it. And then that's how I got into hospitality consultancy, because I then got headhunted to run a venue at Darling Harbour.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I realized, if I don't get out now, this will be my life, which is great. Hospitality is really fun and exciting, but that's your weekends gone, and I knew that there was more for me, so yeah.
What might harbour that for a little bit longer? What did you like and dislike about the hospitality industry?
Alright, so I've got jets outside my window at the moment. So it's a really easy kind of career first of all, to find yourself in. And if you do well with regards to communicating with people, being organized, having an eye for detail, then it's really easy to move up the ranks. The people are fun, and I actually do recommend most medical students will find themselves straight out of high school and going straight into medicine. But do they make the best doctors? I'm not sure, because necessarily you need to learn those skills that can come only from extended human interactions. And it's not just human interaction where you're with your patients, because you're in a position of power. You need to be in a position of power, equal, where you're below someone, and it's only those sorts of life experiences which makes it a more whole doctor, I think it is, because our interpersonal relationships, those are the most important parts of a doctor-patient relationship, unless of course you're a pathologist or a radiologist or a surgeon for that matter. Anyway, and so hospitality was really good training ground and especially if you're training other staff, it's a really good training ground for interpersonal relations, for conflict resolution, and also be taking pride in your work. I think that value can be added from almost any industry, not just hospitality, obviously. But it's good to see that if someone is just a waitress or just a cook or something like that, if they're able to take pride in what they do and they don't rely on being a doctor to then take pride in what they do, that's really important, and those sorts of values are what will take you through your entire life. And so, but apart from all the great stuff about hospitality, it was the weekends that really got me down because I was working. But actually that was really important for me because it gave me that insight into what it can be like to work very, very long hours, so 60 to 80 hours a week, not have your weekends, and not be able to develop sort of habits and do what I wanted to do. And at that stage, I started to develop a love for traveling. And that's sort of taken me into medicine, because now, as a medical practitioner, lifestyle and work-life balance is really important. And that's why I decided to go down sort of that generalist pathway, that GP kind of pathway, where I have my weekends, I make my own hours, and I spend 3 months of a year traveling now.
Recently, you told me that you got the Spirit of the Run for the rickshaw run, and I looked it up, and it's pretty crazy. I think it's these little, it's like the tuk-tuks in Indonesia, those sort of things, and you go around racing in those. What's the Spirit of the Run?
Okay, so for those people who don't realize, it is a company called The Adventurists, and they're based out of the UK, and they have these adventure series, South America, Mongolia, and I did a rickshaw run, which is one of those electric tuk-tuks that goes, and we did 3,000 kilometers from the north to the south. We raised money for charity, but essentially it was meant to be an adventure, and it was. There was a lot of breakdowns and language barriers and getting lost in the middle of India, and it was 3 of us girls.
Right.
And so, and to add sort of interest to the whole thing, the 2 girls I was traveling with were blonde and blue-eyed. And so in India, it was a big deal. Like, people would actually try and try and get us off the road just to take photos of us and stuff. So Spirit of the Run was a surprising accolade that I got at the end of the trip, where it was someone who was adventuresome and always smiling and positive, and who brought value to the run and to the other races. So I got Spirit of the Run.
Well done.
Mostly, I think it's because I threw a kick-ass party, which the police got involved in. But anyway, and then the second one was that I was climbing a tree, this beautiful banyan tree next to a dam, and it was raining, but that didn't stop me, because trees are meant to be climbed. And then unfortunately, I slipped, and as I came off it, I grabbed onto this vine and managed to dislocate my right shoulder as I fell 2 meters to the ground. So I think that all kind of added to that.
Was there anything that happened? Because these are the things that happened when you were throwing the sick-ass party. What about during the journey itself? Was there anything like really scary? Like, I imagine, it's a...
Well, the interesting thing about driving, first of all, an electric tuk-tuk that can't go more than 60 kilometers an hour in India is that there are almost no road rules. So we were riding on the roof of it in the middle of the desert, or we'd be in the middle of Delhi, for example, fearing for our lives. Trucks. When you're not earning very much money per hour, I can imagine these people are working very, very long hours as well. They need to get what they need to get done as quickly as possible, and it doesn't matter if you're in the way or not. So it was constantly these massive trucks trying to veer us off the road and trying to get us out of the way, and I completely understand. So we spent a lot of time waking up super early to get on the road, just as first light hit, so that we could avoid traffic, because it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
Is that
good fun though.
Is that the riskiest thing that you've done, physically speaking?
I am a little bit of an adventure junkie, is what my father likes to call it. But so I've skydived and bungee jumped and scuba dived, parasailed, hang glided, and went caving. Look, if it's something to climb or to explore, then I'm going to do it. Today, actually, I was with my partner out at the rocky outcrops of Kingscliff, and there were all these rocks to climb down. I said, "Oh, let's go!" And he goes, you sublux your shoulder just making the bed. I don't think this is a good idea. And I went, no, it's a good idea. So we went down. That's a good idea, actually. The rocks are really slippery. But anyway, no. So I do try to make sure that I don't let fear hold me back, because it's a really easy thing to let creep into your life, you know? Mm-hmm. We spend our entire time growing up with our parents telling us, be careful, be careful, be careful. But what does that actually mean? You know? So if there is a tree and it's beautiful and it needs to be climbed, I know that it's raining and there's no bark, but I will climb it. So I kind of, I like that about myself. I don't know if it's necessarily the safest thing, but I do like that.
I guess the trees are going to watch out for Olivia.
Yeah.
Let's move on to your international relations degree. What led to that? And
okay, so I'm not sure where it came from. My parents have always been quite humanitarian folk. You know, when I was younger, my parents were Catholic, and I still remember my parents would bring in homeless people and, you know, give them a meal and let them sleep in my bed, and I would, you know, sleep on a cot on the floor in my parents' room, and that kind of, like, that's the kind of people that they were. And I think I took that humanitarian sort of values into my life later on, and so I decided to I knew that the end goal would be medicine, but I just needed an in. And so what I did was I did international relations, and I majored in diplomacy, French, and international relations, because I thought French would be a good idea if I wanted to ever go to Africa, because the idea was to do third world medicine. And that's why I did international relations. After I did it, I wound up going to the Solomon Islands. I did some work at a hospital in Nepal, and I realized a lot of the time there is no lack of really great people wanting to volunteer their time and their skills. Much better people than me. People who can actually do surgery and ONG and, you know, separate conjoined twins and all those sorts of things. There's no end to these wonderful people. What it is, though, that is really needed is someone to coordinate things. In my time in Solomon Islands, I realized that when I was at the hospital in a place called Kira Kira, for example, there would be pallets of antibiotics, for example, pallets of vaccines, but no one was on the ground to say, we don't have a fridge. So these things are going off. You know, everybody's sort of putting in their 2 cents worth without actually having someone understand development aid on the ground. So I did that for a little bit. I did a couple of lectures for some friends at the university as well, talking about development aid. And it's about, I guess, mindfulness about what needs doing, not just blindly throwing resources at a country just because they're third world or whatever it is. You know, what do they actually need? Why do they actually need that? Because you'd be surprised at how many people are very happy living the way they are, you know, without our fussiness, without our TVs and whatever it is. In fact, I got back to Australia and I haven't had a TV since. I don't have a TV.
I get that.
This laptop that I have, my father gave this to me a few months ago. I haven't had a laptop either.
Oh, really? Where do you do your work if you don't have a laptop?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Where do you do your work if you don't have a laptop?
Okay. So now I need a laptop because I've sort of gone into business for myself, whereby I'm building up a public speaking career, and I do talks on the gut microbiome or on the skin microbiota. I kind of prefer the term healthy aging rather than aesthetics, because I'm trying to make sure that when I speak to patients that they understand that there's nothing wrong with aging, and that it can be it's very liberating, actually, the process of aging. But there's a healthy way of doing it, and there's an unhealthy way of doing it, obviously. But anyway, so